Now, when I first got the Vernee Mix 2, I really didn't know what to expect, and I didn't expect that it would be as premium as it actually is. So let me point out the things that is definitely lacking on this phone that might deter a person from picking it up if you live in the US. So the first thing is obviously no LTE for the US. So as you know, I get a lot of phones that are not specifically designed for the US, but some of them, and more lately, a lot of them have been able to get 4G LTE in the US if it's a global version, i.e. some of the Xiaomi devices and some other phones that actually have the LTE bands for the US, at least 2 and 4. So with this phone, it may not have band 2 and 4, but it does get 3G for the US, and in some areas where I live at, 3G is really fast. So that's not a problem for me. But not having LTE in the US can be a huge downfall for a lot of people, and that's something that you need to pay attention to. Now, another thing is the camera on this device is just like the first Mi Mix, with it being on the bottom corner. And that's something that you also need to be aware of if you decide to pick up this device. Now, with that being said, this is a long, tall, narrow device. It has a 6-inch display, and then think of the Galaxy Note 8 when you hold this phone. Except this phone is a little bit heavier than the Galaxy Note 8, but it's that same form factor from that 18:9 ratio because you have a 6-inch display. There is a little earpiece at the top up there, and phone calls on this device were actually pretty good. I mean, no drop calls or anything like that, because I'm strictly over 3G for the most part wherever I went. And with that being said, I traveled everywhere, so I didn't lose 4G or LTE. It just kind of stayed on 3G, which is actually pretty surprising to me because I travel out of town a lot, and this phone did very well. I'm really excited that it at least stayed consistently on 3G, whether it was Cricket or T-Mobile. So that's a huge plus. Now, the screen itself is a beautiful 10-inch, 6-inch display at 18:9, so that's a huge plus for this device. I don't think you'll be disappointed with the screen, nor do I think you'll be disappointed with the build quality on this phone. It is a metal chassis with glass in front back. So remember, this phone only costs 165 bucks. So this is a sleek looking device. I mean, when you think about it, you gotta start asking yourself, all of this for $165? That's what you'll start to say when you use this phone for a couple of weeks like I did. You'll be like, oh my gosh, this is really a $165 device. Yes, it is. It's just that good, man. I mean, I was kind of blown away at how premium the device feels, and I kind of got over it only having 3G, but the screen is gorgeous. The camera on the bottom didn't bother me much at all. Because the quality's not too good. It's okay, but I use the rear camera more, and the rear camera, it too is just okay. That's kind of another drawback for me. The cameras weren't up to my standards, but they were really decent for this $165 price. You've got premium hardware, updated specs as far as today's market, which is like the 18:9 ratio. It's got a metal body, it's got glass front and back. It's a beautiful, beautiful looking phone, and it actually performs very well. Now, that's another thing, that the processor in here is not a Snapdragon 835, but it performs just as well. Now, this does have the dual camera setup on the back with the LED tone flash, and it has a fingerprint reader as well. This even has a headphone jack, and a lot of phones today don't have headphone jacks. So another drawback that I found on this phone is actually the charging port. It does have USB 2.0. That could be a little bit of a letdown for some people, but it has some kind of charging mechanism that can charge faster. So I think it has a fast charger in the box, but I charge from a large fast smart charger, so it actually charges really fast. So that's a huge plus. So the Vernee Mix 2 is a phone that's not technically for the US, but it works well in the US. Again, I consistently got 3G. Build quality is very nice, solid build quality. Phone calls, everything works good. I like the screen, I like the 18:9 ratio. The cameras get about a 5 to 7 from me, maybe closer to a 5, maybe a 6, something like that. Now, this is something that you're probably trusting me on because you know I get a lot of phones, so you might think that I say a lot of them are good, but if you listen, I'm pointing out things that are not good about this phone. No LTE, it has 2.0 for charging. It's a little bigger than the average phone, you know, for some people. The speaker also is another kind of on the weaker side, but it's still good. So overall, I just wanted to throw up a quick video and let you know, about 2 weeks with this phone, it's pretty decent, man. It's not something that I would tell a person not to buy. It's just that if you can get past a few things that I point, now you may get the phone and say, oh, those things don't bother me, Jay. I live in an area where 3G is fast too, so the service is good for me. And you also may say that the speaker is fine, I'll just plug in a headphone. And you also may say, this phone only costs $165, Jay, so the cameras definitely could be an 8 or a 9 for me. So it's up to you. 2160 by 1080, so it's a 1080p display. It's got a 4,200 milliamp hour battery in here. Now, if I didn't touch on the battery is actually pretty decent, man. You can go a full day with this phone, and you know, you could probably go more than a full day depending on your usage. I actually lasted about a day and a half or so on the charge, then I had to charge it. But it does have the 13 megapixel and the 5 on the rear, which again to me they're decent, you know. The MediaTek processor in here is a 2.5 gigahertz. It does have 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs onboard storage with an SD card slot. So these are things that you actually should pay attention to when buying a phone like this. So you're getting some great specs in here, but you just have to want to settle for 3G service in the US. The charging port is 2.0. The camera's on the bottom. You know, certain things like that. But remember, 165 bucks. This is one of those ones that if I were to give you this phone, you wouldn't think it costs 165 bucks, and you definitely would not be bothered probably after using it wherever you live with the 3G service. It's actually really fast, and most people stay on Wi-Fi anyway, so I don't know. It's your man Jay Will, Vernee Mix 2. This is a great phone. I suggest you try it out if you like. The link's in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.